What's going on, Fit Body fam? Nobody's here to show me where their back pain is hurting, so I'm going to give you guys some very general things to do to alleviate some back pain. First, we're going to go through about 4 exercises. No, we'll do 3 exercises, that'll be perfect. And then we'll go through about 4 or 5 different stretches that can alleviate some back pain. Depending on where it is originating from, depending on how long you've had it, depending on imbalances in your hips, imbalances in the quads, hamstrings, all those play a very key role in lower back pain. So these exercises that I'm giving you have a tendency to activate the muscles around there to kind of balance them all out a little bit. So this is pretty much what I'm doing every morning in order to get jump started. Because if I do not, my back pain gets substantially worse. Very first exercise, we're going to be focusing on actually adducting the hips. Adducting the hips means you're bringing them in. So you're activating anything, all the muscles that are related to bringing your knees in. And all you need, you can even do this with a pillow. Medicine ball works really well because you're actually squeezing it, you have some weight to it. But if you have a foam roller, if you have M&Ms that you checked out with us, slam ball, medicine ball, pillow, a bag of apples, that even works. But the goal is squeeze, activate everything on the inside. And while you're squeezing, you need to make sure that there is no gap under you, so your back is nice and flat, nice and tight. And once you actually squeeze everything down, you're probably going to get a little shakiness to it because you're not used to actually having everything down. Because you'll notice that if you just naturally go in this position, you're going to arch your back and start squeezing. It's actually going to deactivate the important hip muscles that we're trying to activate. So all you're doing, squeezing that medicine ball nice and tight for about 10 seconds, and then relaxing it. Squeezing it for about 10 seconds, and then relaxing it. As you squeeze, your intensity of squeezing just gets a little tighter. Typically, when I'm working with any type of dancers or anybody with strong glutes, Stephanie, for example, as they start warming up this muscle, they'll actually feel a little hip pop, and they'll start relieving some back pain as well. So we're just squeezing everything nice and tight, getting a nice little burn in there, and then probably about the 4th or 5th time, squeeze. Very relaxed. Take about 10 seconds. Let some blood flow into those hips. I'm already feeling better as I'm doing this. Then we do the exact same thing, but all we're doing is adding a hip thruster to it. Squeezing the ball, driving the hips up, and we're staying up. It's a small little movement, keeping that nice flat back. We're still not arching the back. If you ever have back pain during a hip thruster, that means you're arching your back a little too much during the hip thruster. Squeeze, driving it up. Think of the back coming to the ground. Don't think of the booty coming to the ground, and driving it up. Just about 10 or 12 of these, nice and slow and controlled. You're going to be shaky a little bit. If you're pretty advanced on this, you'll actually be able to kick one foot out and drive up, and switching sides, kicking one foot up and drive up. I'm not quite there yet, but I've seen it happen. So we just got to work on those adductors. Now we're going to work on the abductors, which are the muscles that take your legs away from the body. You can use a band. A hip band will be awesome, but we have hip bands here, but typically everybody at home only has a piece of rope or string. That will work just fine. So go ahead and do that. All you're doing is tying it around your knees, just above your knees. And you want to be able to open up the hips. There's a little bit of a gap in between the hips. If I can get this knot. There we go. There's my rope. Nice and tight. Same thing what we just did. We're pulsing out. We're pulling out. Pull. Heels down, nice flat back. Everything on the outside is on fire. We're keeping it nice and narrow. We're not too wide right now. Pull. Keep it tight and relax. We're doing this about 4 or 5 times, and then every time intensifying it just a little bit more. Even if it's a rope, you're still pushing against that rope. If you have the bands, tighten them up if necessary. But like I said, rope is just fine. Making sure you're double checking everything. Back stays flat. Back has a tendency to round down. You want to keep it nice and flat. Keep the core tight. Drive those hips out. Relax. Squeeze, drive, squeeze, drive, squeeze, drive. And relax. We're gonna do one more. Drive it out, drive it out, drive it out, drive it out. And then relax. Same thing we did before. We're gonna turn into a hip thruster. Pushing those hips out, or pushing those knees out, activating the muscles around the hips, and then we're coming up, 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 up. Make sure we're not hyperextending the back. Keeping the back nice and neutral. We're driving the butt up, and then the back comes down to the ground. Keeping it up. Keeping the knees pressing out, and the hips driving up. Everything from the booty should be on fire right now. Driving the hips up. You're not always going to be able to make a straight line from the shoulders to the knees. As you can see, I cannot get the hips all the way up. I have some imbalances I'm still working on. But my goal right now is just to activate everything around the hips, because the hips support the lumbar. The more activated the hips are, the less the lower back has to work. Nice, relax. We'll do about 5 or 6 more. Pushing on that rope, driving those hips up, coming back down. Hips up, coming back down. Keep that rope tight, keep that band tight. And relax. Ooh, nice little marks on the legs. Just by getting done with that, you should feel a lot of blood pumping to the hips. And then from there, our last exercise we'll be doing, because we just activated everything around the hips, now we want to focus on activating the actual obliques that kind of support the T-spine and the lower back. So we're just going to make a nice little T. If anybody's really strong in the core and the mobility is on point, they should be able to do this with straight legs, nice 90-degree angle here. But for my sake, I'm still here, and all I'm doing is rocking left, keeping the core tight, and rocking right. And my shoulder blades are staying on the ground. Don't let those shoulder blades move. As you can see, my good side is the left side. I can get that knee almost all the way down there. And on the right side, I get about 45-degree angles, and it's going to stay there for a little bit. But hopefully, by the time we do about 10 or 12 of these, swinging back and forth, use the core. You're using the obliques as you turn left to right. You're turning on those muscles out. Get those firing. Locked and loaded. This is not a stretch. This is turning on those obliques. Getting that lower back to fire. Getting that T-spine to fire. And then as you keep going, you should start feeling that lower back and that T-spine loosening up every rep. I know my limit. Mine's right there for now. Hasn't changed for a few months. This one, on the other hand, now it's getting a little bit better. Beautiful work. These are exercises you can stop and do anytime during the day. It's not going to make you sweaty. You don't got to get changed out for them. It's something you can do right after lunch, right before lunch. Put it in your schedule, lock it out. It'll make your back, your hips feel a lot better. One of the four exercises or stretches we're going to actually focus on is sinking the hips in between the legs. So we've all done the child pose before, but the child pose can have different dynamics depending on what you're focusing on. This one is about opening the hips. So if you elongate the arms, it turns into a little bit more of a lat stretch and a decompression on the spine. With this one, we're trying to open up the knees and sink the hip in between those ankles. Trying to get them as low as possible. Pushing yourself back. So the weight's on your elbows, you're pushing yourself back, trying to sink back in between those ankles. This one's extremely uncomfortable for me, which is why I probably should be in this position a little bit more. Drive it back, push on those elbows, hold, rock left to right. Find out what side's a little bit tighter, give it some extra love. And relax. Next stretch, we're going down into the ground. We typically do this after you work the abs, but this is extremely beneficial for the lower back. And more advanced movements, going to be hands under the shoulder blades. Everything from the hips down is paralyzed. It's melting to the ground, and all you're doing is picking yourself up, and that belly button's coming off the ground. Typically, you're going to feel a nice stretch in the abs because a lot of people are tight in the core. But the idea is to melt the hips down to the ground. So I like to use my elbows, and it's almost as if I'm trying to drag myself forward, but I'm not pulling myself at all. And all it does is some mild traction on the lower back, and it kind of offsets that imbalance on the lumbar. So it's kind of setting all those nice little grooves, putting everything back in place. And with this one, you can rock your hip left to right as you pull. Pull those elbows to the body, rock left to right. Stretch in the abs, nice arch in the lumbar. Try to keep the hips on the ground for this one. Once you start bringing the hips off the ground, you start putting some unnecessary stress on the lumbar. So as high as you want to go, it's going to be when the hips are coming off. There we go. Coming on up. We're going to do what everybody has tight. Lovely hamstring stretch. With the hamstring stretch, so let's focus on one leg at a time. Focusing on both your hamstrings at the same time is not necessarily a good concept if you want a very diverse stretch. So bring that right leg in, left leg out. I like to focus on a rotation and a cross-sectional stretch on my hamstrings because that's how we walk. We walk with one foot in front of the other, and we're constantly moving in opposite platforms. So I like to take the left leg forward and the right arm, cross it across the lower portion of your leg. Try to hook under your calf and kind of pull yourself down here. If you reach for the toes, it's obviously a very general concept when it comes to stretching, but then your goal is to get to your toes and you're going to awkwardly twist your body in different forms. So I like the concept of your goal is your torso to be folded down to your knee. So grab a piece of meat on that leg and then pull yourself down, and then you can focus just on those hamstrings. And you can intensify that stretch by just bringing that big toe towards your face, and you can make it a little easier by bringing that toe away from there. And you can pulse this one out. You can also pulse by bringing yourself a little bit lower than you're comfortable with and bend the knee at the same time, and then focus on driving that knee to the ground. This will help you advance your stretches just a little bit more. A little pulse action. You'll also notice if you windshield wipe your foot, left to right, you're going to find different areas that are tight and different areas that are loose. Try to make three-dimensional stretching your goal. Play around in those stretches. So switch sides, left leg in, right leg out. Pulling yourself down. As you see, this is my bad one. My other side, I can get all the way to my calf. This one I can get to my knee. That's about it. Same concept though. Pull yourself down. Feel the stretch in the hamstring. Point the toe. Big toe to your face. Point it away. Big toe to your face. Point it away. Bend that knee, pull yourself down a little bit further, and then try some pulse actions. Reach. And let's not forget that windshield wiper concept. You want to hit all three dimensions of that muscle. Love your care. There we go. And finish it off with some quad stretches. Quads are typically not the tight factor when it comes to back pain, but hip flexors are. And in order to stretch your hip flexors, you gotta stretch your quads because they're right there in one. So typically this is used as a quad stretch by either grabbing your ankle, pulling it into your butt, or leaning down into it. It has a tendency to get the quad as well. So in order for us to make sure we only get our hip flexors, which is going to be crossing the hip, we need to drive the hip forward and stay nice and tall. All right. As we drive the hip forward, we stay tall. If you drive the hip forward and fold forward, that stretch becomes non-existent because you're just folding with the hip driving forward. So drive the hip forward, chest stays nice and tall, and all you're doing is squeezing that glute. Very simple position, and it looks easy, but the harder you squeeze that glute, the more you drive that hip forward, the more intense that this stretch gets. Also play with this one. Foot comes in, squeeze, foot goes neutral, squeeze, and then the hardest one, foot comes out and squeeze, you'll feel it. And when you take that foot out, you're going to feel it run from the inside all the way down to the outside of the hip, all the way down to the inside of the knee. And switch the sides. Same concept. Hip comes forward, drive, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Add a little twist to this if you feel like you're pretty advanced. Also take your hand over your head. That brings in the obliques with the stretch as well. Remember, bring the foot in, squeeze the glute, drive the hip forward. Go neutral, squeeze the glute, drive the hip forward. And then take that leg nice and far out and squeeze. There we go. You got some exercises, you got some stretches to focus on to alleviate back pain. Even if you don't have much back pain, these are still great things you can do throughout the day. It keeps your metabolism spiked up, keeps your blood flowing, keeps your body loose and limber.